One. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PlungeCast. Thank you for joining me. We just finished up with the incredible chat with the Kickstarter campaign. We had, if you'd missed that one, jump in and check out our site, PlungeCast on YouTube later, and you'll be able to see that awesome lot of information about how to run a campaign from people who've actually spent 10 years doing it. And people who are in the industry, in the comic book industry. Now, today I have amazing guests with me, close friends, and someone who's been at the start of what we got started with Plunge and stuff, and Whangarei, about 2018, when I rocked up to the opening of Northern Art Center in Whangarei. It was a cold April night, if I remember right. I think it was the 29th, and
yeah.
I walked in for this first time, really cool thing that was happening with airbrush and stuff. And outside, I was a smoker at that time. I've given up smoking for a year and a half now. I feel really good. I get to spend that money on toys, right? I get to spend it on toys and comic books now. So something more long lasting than smoke going away and my health getting better. But one of the cool things about that is that we were able to network. And here we are, working, over those 5 years, making friendships, the community benefiting from that, the amazing stuff that's worked through these two friends of ours, especially Julia Tapp, working with, I guess, in the sense of special needs, young ones and older ones in the community, and also using art as a way to, get kids involved in something more creative. And I'm gonna let Juliet introduce herself now, and also Zoe, and we'll talk to them afterwards.
Okay, awesome. Hi, my name's Julia, and this one here is Zoe.
Hello.
I am an airbrush artist, but I'm also a community worker. I help out with doing respite for neurodivergence, special needs as well, or mainly teenagers struggling with depression that need essentially an emergency art space, as bizarre as that sounds. It is a needed thing in the community. And Zoe here, my daughter, has been working alongside me for the last, at least 6-7 years, helping out with all sorts around the community. So I'm sure you've got heaps of questions for us. And would you like to introduce yourself, and then we'll see where Aru goes from there.
So hello, I'm Zoe. I work with Julia, like she says, in the art centre, working with respite and mental health and all that. I also do teaching for young kids within the community, helping put out affordable art lessons so that they can have an opportunity to learn. And I also do traditional and digital art, and I teach that to them, and I do all that, and I really enjoy it.
She's Photoshop lady, and I'm the traditional side.
Awesome. That is pretty cool. Like, it's kind of like the new tech and the old tech. You got people draw. For me, I like to encourage both now. I like to encourage the traditional. Make sure you got your traditional down, and then go with your digital, because that way you're not shortcutting to digital, because sometimes you miss out a lot if you just jump to digital without learning the traditional. And I think the great thing is now because with the digital, you have so many shortcut software applications that you can use to actually not learn as much. Like, I can basically get 3D images, and I can chuck it up there, and I can just draw around that, and that's me done, right? And without even knowing anything about proportions, how what size the head's got to be compared to the arms, compared to the body. And so with your with the school that you've been teaching, how do you go about teaching someone who's maybe come out of digital and go, okay, now we need to how do we get them to focus on traditional learning about actually get back to the basics? How do you do that with these guys?
did you want to talk to them about your students, or should I
Sure.
go first? Because we have very different teaching methods.
You can go first if you like.
I can go first? Okay, so I mostly teach the airbrush classes, whereas Zoe teaches a lot of the younger kids and the teenagers. So for our classes, they're developed by Tony Vels by Airbrush Venturi, but you were taught a systematic lot of scales. So say 8 different strokes, and then those are measured by percentage values. So it's exact and direct rendering. So you're taught to break down photographs and images and know exactly what stroke to know how high from the canvas with how much opacity and a certain percentage focal tone. So that one is very measured, very much like a builder's plan. And that takes care of a lot of the people that they don't really do left and right brain dominant now, but the left brain thinkers that were more math-based, and people that go, I have no art skills, can learn through that method. Whereas the other method which we teach, and Zoe specializes in, is more like a block method. So I'll let Zoe chat about how you do it.
With the way I teach is I allow both traditional and digital in my class because I think that they're both very good forms of art. And when I am transferring digital to traditional, what I do is I will take what they already know, or I'll have a look and I'll teach them how to actually break down what they're looking at. Because what we find is these people are really good with copying, and also a lot of the brushes and the models are preset, so they're very good at copying them. So what I do is I help them break it down and learn sort of art fundamentals to understand what they're seeing, like balance, composition, proportion, form, tone, all of those things that you're taught in traditional art that you may not learn in digital.
It's like going back to those little wooden mannequins, essentially.
Yeah. So we might even use a 3D model as a sort of a starting point, and then we show them how to break that down on paper and measure it, and not to trace those models, but to look at them and understand how they work.
Or even a stick figure, which is interesting because a lot of traditional and digital art just starts with a simple stick figure. Yeah. So I think seeing that common ground there and building up from, well, you can't get more basic than a stick figure, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta get the angles, the poses, and you go from there. I think the great thing about like having for me traditional, right? Like having the traditional thing, it's tactile. You can touch it. You can put your hand on it. You can pass it on. Of course, you can do that digitally, but like it's actually physical thing there. Like it's here, right? And I think now that we're able to have amazing printers that we can actually get digital artwork printed out, canvases and stuff, we're able to do that as well, rather than just being on paper. So have you guys looked at actually like say we've got the airbrush artwork there behind you. Have you looked at actually maybe looking at that, getting digitized and then printing that out as like, other forms of like, merch, like say like maybe like get on a pillow or get it on like a postcard or a wall hanging, something like that, because it's going from traditional to like going from traditional going to digital and then going back to traditional.
Yeah, so quite often after the traditional artwork is done, photos are taken, and then at the events, because we do a lot of market stalls and things too, we'll have tables with prints on, or things like, oh, you can't see them that way, Ratfink on the back of my shirt. So you print them onto T-shirts, handbags. We've done all sorts, that sort of thing, which is pretty cool. But that's more like a cash and carry range. Whereas I want to learn more about digital, and I look at Zoe's work, I go, how do you do that? She's doing the same at me. So we're in this weird generational gap where we're just going to teach each other.
But that's the cool thing about that, isn't it? Like, having mum and daughter there teaching together, yet doing different forms of tutorials to students of all ages. What are you talk about, what ages are your students that you teach there?
Did you want to do yours first?
So my students, I teach a group of tweens, and I find that they are a very digital focused generation, and they're very obsessed with anime and cartoons. And so what I've been doing is I've been taking things that they're used to and that they enjoy, and I've been like trying to get them to do it traditionally or explore with it or stuff like that, so that they get a broader sort of skill set. And I'm still teaching it through these sort of cartoon things, because that's what I've found is they just enjoy it the most, being children, and they're really responding to it well. And there's still stuff to be learnt through stuff like cartoons, manga, like they're artists with jobs and big industries. They're good artists.
Plus, it's more enjoyable, isn't it? Like to do the animated style of work as well, or when you're like, because I think for me personally, I like looking at that. I watch anime all the time, and I think it's the visual element of cartoons and animation has this real creative, enjoyable beauty to it that like traditional animation kind of doesn't. It becomes more serious, and so when you have something like animes that can be very serious sometimes, like ReZero is like one of the most brutal, series out there. But then you have something like, Pokemon, right? And then you have something like Dr. Stone, which is a bit more, a bit more educational in the sense, how to survive a friggin' apocalypse, how do you survive the end of the world, and how do you make soap, and how do you, how do you make Wi-Fi or walkie-talkies in a world that has lost all technology. And I think this is like when you're watching something like that, and then you get to draw some form of your own art style based on those characters because you love those characters. I think there's a lot of joy that comes with it. Like imagine like you're growing up watching Mickey Mouse, and now you're learning how to draw Mickey Mouse. Do you have any like students who actually like have been able to bring what they've loved and actually bring their own style into that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. We actually do fun art challenges. So like one of the art challenges was to draw themselves or their own characters in a style of something they enjoyed, like a show, a book, a movie. It could be anything. And I teach like that because it's still teaching them to observe and to just pay attention to how things work within other things in the art. And it's really good. Right. They have a lot of fun. And we do color palette challenges, and just it's really engaging artwork in a way of teaching.
The challenge I like that she does actually throws a spanner in the work, because I'm a different type of teacher, and I tend to go, right, let's see what they can handle. And Zoe has this cool challenge where there are like 4 or 5 different options for gender, height, weight, hobbies, activities, and the students have to pick a random number and create a character that is to that. So in that sense, the girl, which is always like, I'm talking stereotypically, if someone is always drawing fairies and dream catchers, they might end up with a angry dwarf who lives in a flower or something, and so they have to do outside of their thinking as well, because that's a huge part of being an artist as well, is it's wonderful to do what you like and what your passion is, but there's a huge amount of skill in it, being able to bring other people's creations to life or something unexpected.
Doing commissions, you often have to work outside of your comfort zone.
You
have to try new stuff because the client wants something you've never done before or not often, and you're like, well, guess I got to learn it.
And you're not truly challenging yourself if you're always doing the same things. You get stuck in loops.
So how many students do you guys teach at any given time?
So usually classes are about 6 to 7 max, so they're only tiny. We did used to have a shop in town, but during COVID and all that drama, we decided to downscale and buy our own studio. So we operate just out of Portland. Zoe has 7 a week in one class, plus another class of about, I think there's another 7 in that class too. We're looking at opening a third class shortly. I have 10 airbrush students and I have 3 respite students regularly stay overnight on average each week. We've got one here at the moment who's been here about, a week? 2 weeks, he's just told me. And we're helping him with a bit of a life crisis and he'll be moving on shortly. So it's the halfway house of arts here.
I remember when I moved, like I've lived with everybody, like people all my life, right? I moved out of home when I was like about 16, going on 17. And that was like about 30 odd years ago, 34 years ago. And I remember ever since then, like I left my family and I flatted and rented and boarded and, with all sorts of people over that time. So 5 years ago, for the first time, I started living alone. And the first night was the scariest night when I realized that I am now alone. And I remember I said to my sister, can you come over? Because there's so much silence. Like I had, before, like the 5 years before, I had kids running around the house making, noises and stuff, and I had silence. My sister said to me, right, she said, you need to sort out what it is you want to do, and what brings you joy. And I think one thing I thought was like, it's art, it's music, and I think a lot of times we've forgotten what art and music actually can do for us, right? And I think art can provide an imagination to get out of our head. Music can take us to an emotional point. And I think for me personally, because it was quite depressing, and I had to figure out, and I had to go, yes, this is what makes me happy, right? The 2 things that make me happy. I think there was a third one as well, but like there was 2 things that really made me happy, and and I found like we've lost that over time. We've said that art isn't that important, that it doesn't allow, like getting doodling on paper, getting our thoughts out and just messing around isn't that important anymore. And I think somehow we lost that, because when we were growing up, it was like, you doodle all you want, sit in class and you doodle and nobody cared. And suddenly somewhere along there, somebody said, no, you shouldn't be doodling, you should be paying attention, whereas because not all of us think the same way, not all of us get educated the same way, because a lot of us are visual, and I'm very visual. Technical stuff, I just can't get it. But if you show me visually what it is, I'll get it. So, you've got students now coming to you who, from all sort of backgrounds. How do you try to get them to a stage where you're able to talk to them, to be able to manage them into their own sort of thing, at that special place?
Into the trust and things like that, do you mean?
Because not only that, but because you're your teacher, right? They're coming to you and they're going, this is what I've been thinking all this time. And then you go, well, how, have you thought about this? And how do you get them to build, like you said, build that trust? And because you're strangers, right, to them, and they're strangers to you, and art is the only thing that's your road or your path to each other. How do you bring that path, get you both on the same path with them?
So I think most of the time, if it's not a instructed and delivered course, if we're left to take things naturally, which is one of the other services we offer, I suppose is a way of putting it, the first session, we actually do mostly a sit-down session. Now, we have a very unique approach. I'm not there to diagnose anyone. I'm not there to offer art therapy. We actually just make coffee or hot chocolate. We don't feed the kids up on coffee. And we sit beside them and we focus on the arts. Now, there is actual scientific proof that after 40 minutes of doing art, music, dance, anything creatively related will release dopamine and serotonin in your brain. So, I mean, there is a whole chemistry paper, and art therapists know more about it than I do. But throughout our healing, because we opened after we'd lost a 3-year-old in a tragic accident, we found that we healed ourselves through doing arts along with the community. So restoring those good brain chemicals. So I took that, I'm probably wrong, but I took that as meaning art heals. And through not being there, like, we are not a public organization, we're a private organization, we're also a registered charity, but we tend to work, because we're not there to grade the person or figure out why they're using the red crayon or whatever. You'll find more natural conversations come up, because we're just private people there to guide and coach through the art process. And often we've had things that students have said to us, and we have spoken to the parents briefly about it later. This is younger students, and they're like, wow, they never tell anybody that. Or you know, it's providing a safe space and atmosphere where they're not being graded and judged. For the other ones on the courses, they're being graded and judged.
It's like two people just hanging out, doing art in a comfortable space and just talking about whatever's on their mind. It's very casual.
And those lessons too, they can do what they want. They say, hey, I want to learn to do this. Or we had one girl painted a beautiful painting, and then she covered it in black paint and started scratching through it and scratched rage into the canvas. And we were like, oh, that sucks to see that beautiful artwork go. But she's just taken her rage out onto that canvas and still portrayed her emotion. So that there was really cathartic, really healing for her. She might have needed to destroy something beautiful to get out that expression. So you know, it's nice when they don't do that too.
I think that's a great thing about art, isn't it? Like, we're able to put it on paper. You know, we're not able to put it out physically into other people, that rage. And I think where people haven't, because they haven't learned to put it on paper or in art or in music, and they've put it out physically, you know, that's where we get all this chaos from. And in our culture, I personally, you know, right, talking about that, I remember I did a feature film, and in that film I got my rage out, right, and I got what I felt out. I felt so much better afterwards. It's like, it's out, you know. And I made it in a fantasy sort of setting, a drama, thriller, whatever, crime. I got it out, and I was able to carry on, you know. And I think a lot of times people hold on, and I think art, things like art and music and dance and performances, this thing that we kind of like, we enjoy in life and we know a lot about, but we still don't appreciate enough of the, like you talk about, the healing side of it, and the emotional healing that comes through those expressions. We kind of like
part of it, like art in particular, music, you can feel it, and certainly like your musicians let it out when you see their performances, a really heartfelt performance. Art, if you need to, you can screw it up, you can feel it, you can make it soft, you can rip it with a knife,
set it on fire.
You can set it on fire. You can't do that with digital art unless you print it first.
No.
But I suppose, like, even digital art would have those healing benefits, though, because it's brain chemistry when you're using those parts of your brain lighting up.
No, it does make art very accessible for people who can't afford paper or paint.
Exactly.
Everyone has a phone these days, so everyone.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could, you know, you could just go online and read a comic book without having to, you know, go into a shop and pay for it or something. but also, in return, you could actually buy those pages off online as a digital download as a PDF, and or you can share it and stuff. And I think that just like we're doing here, technology has made it so much easier for us to be able to, share our feelings out into the world. And I think sometimes, I think because this, where people are out there, you don't know who's out there on the other end. And so when you have someone like yourself actually physically there in the community, people can, bring kids and go, yep, I know this person will look after my child, and, we'll teach them art, and we'll be able to communicate in a way, they're registered, they're trusted by the community, they've got all this stuff, and, they're not going to have to worry about it. And so I think that aspect of having a place like yourselves, and you've been at it for 5 years now, 5.5 years almost. And I think the community,
it's been really beautiful to offer it in the community too, because you were just talking about different teaching styles and stuff. I remember one lesson we had a student who would go under the desk, and the parent was telling them that they were being bad climbing under the table and to come out for the lesson. You know what? It's way easier just to put a teacher down there too. And by the end of the session, they had done some beautiful work, and he sat up at the table every day for the next term, which was cool. But both of us were the weird Asperger's kid that sat in the corner. So,
well, it reminds me of H.R. Geiger, right? When he was young, when he was doing his art. This is a guy who did all the really famous aliens creature designs, right? And so he used to put a blanket over his head and draw, right? And you saw this beautiful art come out. That, to be honest, that it's a monstrous beauty. It isn't a cuddly toy beauty, or anime or cartoon, but it is beauty, and it is, and that's the thing about art. I think I love. I think you can have, you can have something like this, right? This is by Shane Evans, our local artist, Art of Evans, right? So we've got Judge Death here from our favorite, mine and his favorite 2080 comic books, right? So that's the opposite, kind of opposite of Judge Dredd, right? Everybody knows Carl Urban and Dredd 3D movie, our local, he
does great art too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant, right? So I mean, so you can have something cute and cuddly, right? Superhero oriented, but you can also have something like this, creepy looking, yet still the line work and everything shows you it's not everybody. What is that called? Not everybody enjoys the same art, and finds the same sort of passion for the same art. I love horror movies and stuff, but doesn't mean I'm going to consume every single moment of every single day horror movies, because I'm going to get tired of it. So I will turn off. I'll watch one a week, and then I'll go and watch tons of animated, anime or cartoons and stuff like that. Or I'll go and watch, a TV show. Like recently, I've been watching called Warrior. I get to learn about the Asian Chinese over in America in the 1800s, right? And that culture and how, what was going on with that. And I think having entertainment so accessible through mediums like TV, animation, art, books, literature, it's made us so, I think sometimes it makes us blasé about art. You're going to go, well, somebody once said to me, "Oh, is comics a good? Is comics such a big deal?" And you realize there's $1 billion movie just came out, right? Based on a comic book character that was created in the '60s, Spider-Man, and and through that one character being created 60 odd years ago by two people, I think it was Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, right? And Steve Ditko is the guy who actually designed the character. to what we know him as. And 60 odd years of people benefiting from those stories, kids growing up on it. I've got toys and toys. I've got I've got a bed sheet covering a mattress there with Spider-Man hanging on it, right? And all that business element. Yeah, there's that business element to creating art, and I talked about earlier about how you get into from like actual just doing traditional to getting into like getting on bags and t-shirts and stuff. But there is a whole economy behind this piece of art that we create. And I think it's become so accessible that sometimes I feel people are blasé about what's there, the mass production side of it. People,
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you as a traditional artist are doing one-off pieces as well, right? And you're able to not only be a teacher and, got Zoe there teaching digital, which can be manufactured over and over and over and over into whatever. But like, not only that, you can also turn that into traditional by actually saying, okay, let's put on some canvas, let's put on some, backpacks, let's do a patch of it. And now it becomes that one single piece can create economy around it. And I think people don't realize that, like all these students that are coming, that they can find something career in it. One or two might decide to stick with it. And I think a lot of times parents, like there's still parents who don't understand that art can be a career, and that art can be something.
You need that cash and carry range as well as the originals range, though. So, like this one, you probably can't see it too well behind me at the moment. It's for a hot rod show. The original will be being sold to the model's family. We've already agreed on that. There you go, Miss Twisted. She's a beautiful model from Auckland. A Twisted Scarlet, that was it. And we'll be releasing prints of that. I might make that one a bedspread. That'd be cool, eh? Like, there's great places like who is it overseas? There's got to be local ones too, but the ones like, is it Vistaprint and Snapfish? They can do things pretty cheap.
You put it on stuff that people use or would buy as a gift and make it affordable, because not everyone's going to pay the price that artwork is worth. So you give them something like prints and products.
Yeah,
there is print on demand, right? Like this, I think it's Printful, and we can put on. People can buy it on demand, rather. Whereas, like, I was looking at that last year and thinking about it, and how you could basically get, people could buy your art and it'll get made and ordered on demand and sent to them when they get in the card and pay the bill, and it'll get to them when on time and so on. I think this is the great way to, that, especially with young ones right now, right? Technology, they can learn so quickly from what has been taught from business sense, because of all, that you guys are like, there's a digital aspect, but now you've got a piece of work. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, correct. I think I'm relying, or I'm hoping that people are going to keep valuing the human touch on artworks as AI art is coming more and more in and more popular, which is a whole different thread in itself. A few of my artist friends said, oh, that means we have to lower our prices. And I'm like, hang on, why does that mean you have to lower your prices? You're doing a service which is hand done. That's a computer. If anything, it's caused to maintain your prices and uphold that traditional industry.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a few people about AI art in the past, and I think it's a machine, a machine which takes all the creators' works that's ever been created out into this machine, chews it up, and puts out a version of all their work in that style, but it's not real. All it's doing is copying humans, right? It's all it's doing is taking human work and saying, here's a new version, a robot, a digital version of what that would look like if it was all chewed up and spit out like this. So it's like a stew. That's basically what it is. It's stew. It's not.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
not
have
gourmet.
a slightly unpopular opinion on digital art. Zoe and I
Yeah.
slightly disagree on some of it too. And
Mm.
when I heard about it and people were, knocking it and dragging it down on the internet, which I
Mm.
understand, on the other hand, as an artist, I went, awesome. I can now type in all my keywords and get vomited back out at me like 6 or 8 different variations of
Yeah.
templates where I can go, I like that bit there and that bit there
Yeah.
and that bit there, and then use that for inspiration instead of having to design those 8 myself. I
Right.
can already see it and I can take what I like from each one to create what I like. So I think if you use it as a tool, it's a great thing.
Yeah, the thing
Yeah.
I don't
But-
like about it is it steals art. But art's going to get stolen if you post it on the internet. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a bit of a grey area.
Yeah, we
Yeah. I
can
mean,
try our
anything you
best.
put out.
Wasn't it Picasso said steal it like an artist? I believe that's
Well, I
one
mean,
of
like,
his quotes. But
we've always got an inspiration from other people's work. This is just a digital version of
Yeah.
that. I think
Yeah.
I had a go myself, right, as a writer. So sometimes I like I don't actually, I let, because I work with several artists, I know what their style is, so I don't tend to I just go, this is like I do collages. That's how I work with my artists. I do collages, and I'll put little instructions of the look. Like I'll say, that boot needs to be like this. So I'll get a picture of a boot. I'll stick it to the collage person. The jacket will look like this. This is the face of what I want the character to look like. She'll have dreads. The other one won't, and so on. This is how the colors scheme will be. And we've done this recently with the Templeton twins, right? Where they're twins, but they're opposites of each other. One's goth, one isn't. One's like a summer dress wearing thing. One's the other one's like goth boots, a black hoodie and so on. And the other one's, got light. So the way I was doing that, I was like, I just got a whole bunch of pictures and I collaged it. Now you could say, like, if I put it into AI and same things, I go, well, this one's got to be like this. It'll give me something, but it'll also force my artist to do it the way Dad has done it, because he'll see the style now. It's not letting the artist use their imagination of trying to. I'll get, I'll have a whole bunch of instructions as well, but I have the pictures there, and I'll let that artist go for it. And I see the beauty when they come back to me in like 2D pencil work or ink work, and I go, wow, it's so much better than what I could have done and what machine could have done, because there's this human element to it that machines totally miss out on.
You make the final decision at the end of the day on what goes in that artwork.
Well, it's very common for concept artists to photo bash, which is taking real photos and incorporating them in their artworks and painting over top.
Right.
Oh, true. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, background work and stuff. I've got one that's like that as well. Like we've got a back. With one of our young artists did a cover for us, and the background is like, you can see it. It's like it's a photo and it looks beautiful just the way they've done it. It's like out of focus and looks amazing. Where she's done 3D, like 2D art, anime art on top, but like just the background. And I think that's the same with with animation. You see, like we've done for years, like the backgrounds, like when you see the westerns, right? There's like there's a screen that moves, and there's a horse running in front of it, right? And there's just a screen that moves. And so this is not something new, using that photo bash element. But the other thing I was thinking, like as a writer, I have a short story idea I did write. So I want to see how I think it was ChatGPT or something like that would work and write a script according to what I put in from my original idea. So I did about 3 different versions, and I could see, every time I changed it, and I thought, okay, let's try this, 15 pages or 12-page story about this and about this. This is the main character. This is this. This is this, and this is what happens. My plot lines that when I'm trying to come up with a story. What's the idea behind it? What plot elements will happen? What will be the final thing? What will be the start of it? What's in the middle? So I used it, and I went, it's really great, because the reason it gave me what it gave me the Hollywood standard version of what cookie cutter stories are like now, and we have become used to. It was totally cookie cutted, right?
Yeah.
The story was like, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. And I'm like, now, okay, great, that's cool. But now I need to bring something from my own emotion into it, because otherwise there's nothing there. It's just cookie cutter. And I think this is what, like, the great thing about AI, it can do that, give us the steps, shortcut the steps, basically. It's just a shortcut, right? But at the end of the day, we can go away and put our own self into it, our emotions into it. So I think that's a good side of AI. The bad side is that stealing art, stealing other people's ideas. People who are actually really, really famous as actual proper artists are now being told that they're like AI artists, right? Because their art has been stolen so many times through AI that, like, their own original artists, digital artists, or even traditional artists are not being fairly treated on their own traditional work. And I think that's that's the sad part of it. That's the downside of that.
I think too, that's where I was saying, like, I think I'd only ever really use it for inspiration personally. Like, I don't think it's something that people should really go in and create this art on and then print that off as prints and sell them.
You can almost always tell, though, because it can only create from what already exists, so there is nothing new. So if you have a look, you can see parts in the AI artwork that are present in other artists and artworks and ways they do things, and that's how you tell.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't create anything new.
Yeah. It's just a mashup.
It won't be long before it is creating
new, though.
Yeah. It won't be, it's always a case, like, it's only time. Only time will, bring more technology to the head, where we won't be able to know who is who and what's what. And I think that's my fear. It's like when you can't tell what an original piece of artwork is compared to what is a AI created artwork by the same artist, right? And you go, well, someone's basically taken someone's work and is now making money off a traditional artist's work, who spent their entire, learning life becoming this quality artwork. But now somebody can just go, oh yeah, I'm going to put it in. Here you go, same price. Or even cheapen it. I think that's a sad part of it. Is where it makes it so easy that the value of appreciating art has dropped. And I think I would, having something, created by a proper, not proper artist, but an artist that that you can hold and you can see the strokes and the the pen strokes, the felt marks, whatever. And it's actually there. It's never going to be able to compete with the same emotional thing with a computer. Someone has the same value to it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Now, let's talk about some copywriting, because we're talking about AI and stuff. And because you guys work at markets and you do like face painting, you do pop art and other people, reproducing other people's work and stuff. So what's it been like when in that sort of area as going to markets, not markets but fairs and stuff like that, events, conventions, like you went you did
it's complicated. So depending on the purpose of the artwork and whether there is benefit made or not, the rules actually change. So we've had everything from there's a festival called the Beach Hop, which is a car festival down south in Whangarei each year. And when we paint for them, sometimes it's images like, for example, when we applied to paint Betty Boop, we had to hire the use of her image to be painted to be reproduced for a caravan door once. And it was a fee of about $500 to paint her, to pay for all the royalties to do that, because the caravan was being sold for profit. So that meant that they had to essentially apply to the owner to buy the license or whatever, about $500. is what I've come across for most of places, like Getty Images as well, to do them for public show or reproduction. So you can certainly buy the rights if you like, but it is expensive. We do a lot of live shows though, and we're a registered charity with students. And in New Zealand, the copyright law, I can't legally say does not apply, but there is a roundabout way where if you were painting it for practice, not for profit, or just demonstration or hobby, and there's no money being traded on parts, then you are allowed to paint that painting in public. You are not allowed to sell it. You're not allowed to reproduce it and then sell laminated copies of it. So that's essentially if you're doing it for a live demo or display. So quite often when you see our team painting a car at an event, some of those images technically are copyrighted, but we're doing them as a live demonstration. There's no money handed over. And then at the end of it, if we do get any donations through for our charity, they go to the Angel Baby castings. But otherwise, you must apply for licenses for copyright law, because I know a lot of people believe the old thing of the change it by, was it 10%, I think, and it's non-applicable. And that is not true. That is not true at all. In New Zealand, it comes down to a likeness. It makes it a very grey law, because we used to have employment lawyers and trademark lawyers that would go through this with us. If they can take you to court and argue that you have based your design off their design, you can get done for it. In regards to somewhere like Marvel, though, or Disney, they would have to take you to court in the country where the crime is committed. So they would have to launch a case against you in New Zealand. So that is the law. Practice, demonstration, or study. If you sell it, you have to give them a cut, preferably beforehand. And if you're actually going to sell it and put a price tag on it, play it safe and pay that fee to Getty Images or to Warner Brothers or whoever. I know it's a lot, but at the end of it, it keeps you out of a whole lot of legal trouble. So that's the basics of the copyright law. But yeah, anything to say? Agree, disagree? Guys?
Well, that's pretty much how it works.
Yeah. I learned all this too. Sorry.
Oh, carry on.
Oh, I was saying I learned all this too by making an artist accident. And that was 10 years ago when I was learning to airbrush. I found this amazing photo of a shark online. And someone had removed all the watermarks and copyrights, and I don't know who it belonged to, and it was on a free wallpaper site. So I thought, I'll paint that and I'll sell it. So I painted it, put a price tag on it, and then someone tagged the photographer in it. And it turns out he was a photographer for National Geographic.
Right.
And so he was not impressed and wanted 50% of the sale, and the gallery wanted 52% of the sale. And I sat there going, I'm 102% down before I sell this thing now. So it pays to, but then again, sometimes if you find an artwork or fan art especially, or a picture you want to do and you approach the artist, most of the time they say, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, like it's like me. Like, I mean, I don't mind anybody doing this at all. I have no problem, right? I have no problem anybody out there doing fan work for Incredigo, because it's my property. So if somebody says, "Oh, yeah, what?" If I someday go, "Well, yeah, I didn't give you it right," I go, as long as you don't, you're not out there like trying to like sell it as your character, or you're trying to like make something, something like R-rated, right? This is all ages thing. So if you're not trying to like abuse the idea behind the character, I'm happy with that. I think that the problem, this is sometimes like, it disgusts me sometimes, to be honest. Like when I see like things made for kids being adulterated, like and I've seen it, like I think, you get something like cutesy, like, like, and it's put into like a adult pose or adult clothes. It's kind of like takes the innocence away of the actual, so because because I come from a background of like comics, where I believe that there's an age to what a person should be reading and what content they should be at what age. So I'll label the ratings on those comics. So like when we were putting out Incredible, right? So because this is our only all ages comic book, I couldn't put any of our other comics advertising behind it because the other comics are all mature readers. So I, said like we can't advertise anything else because it's for kids. Like anybody, like 13, 12-year-olds can read it. And I think what we've, a lot of times we see stuff like Mickey and Donald and some of the more innocent characters being put in a art creation, being put into something else, like you could do with AI right now. Like you put this in and this in and this in, it'll spew out this adult content based off these kids, not merch, but kids products, and I think that's a harmful side of that I've seen in AI, is that you can put real people into the situations that you never actually. Yeah, and I've seen that happen, and I've had news things about that happen where people have deep fake people's faces onto other people's faces, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. I know, and I think this is where I, like with back to AI, I think we sort of, it's better to err on the side of caution as much as possible, I think, and that's the same thing with copyright, right? You want to err on the side of caution because you don't want to open yourself up to lawsuits, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be the one who goes broke because you did one little picture.
No, and usually they've got more money than you. Yeah. So err on the side of caution, 100%.
Now, have you had any of your work being reproduced by other people?
Kind of, not mass reproduced, but I've caught out a few plagiarisms and things like that. So it started in the days of, oh my gosh, even before Facebook. I can't, maybe like, was it MySpace, or when you had those little chat logos?
Yeah.
Some like back then, and you had your little chat avatar and my artwork. Yeah. So that was when it started happening. Mostly people using it for logos or avatars. I've had a couple of people plagiarize my work and claim it's theirs. And I've had some coincidences where I can't prove it's based off mine, but it's a really common concept. That one's really hard as well. And I think the biggest one we came across was a complete scam. And it was an image of one of my paintings got turned into a product. And because I saw it was a product, I clicked on it. And it turned out to be a virus from Russia or something. So it was a Trojan. I had a Trojan. Yeah, with my face on it, like me standing next to a painting, basically. So that's how I had my art stolen. I know. I was like, I'm a virus in Russia. Neat. It's been for deceiving benefits. Apart from the time it was literally stolen from a house during a robbery, but that was another story.
Yeah, we live in a social media world, right? We share all our work. Like all our stuff is on Plunge Studios, right? I'll share because I'm trying to create a publicity, for my work, for our work, so that my artists can be showcasing their work. We can build up a, customer base or a fan base for what we are creating. And so you're putting out pages out there, but there's also the fact that this is all going to get chewed up into AI anyway. Everything that we've ever put out, so you can try to say, no, you can hold off, but how do you balance, knowing that anybody can take your work
That's
against
right, and
we're
it's
trying to make
really
a living.
hard. It used to be that you just didn't upload a high resolution image and you put a watermark on it and you were fine.
Yeah,
And technology has just wiped that out the window now. Like you can take
yeah,
the lowest resolution picture with a watermark and run it through AI, and it
yeah,
increases the resolution and removes the watermarks. So
yeah,
what do you do? But then I mean I quite like fan art. I like the concept of fan art and
yeah.
how how giving and free it is. Yeah.
So you guys
I can't wait
like you do
to
a lot.
be at your exhibition or your convention.
I was going to get to that, but like with your artwork, you do a lot of pop culture style themes, like poses and like I mean, what was the recent one I saw of yours? I mean, you did it like an Iron Man a while back and stuff like that. So are those like custom works that you do, or are you just doing it like a lot of work? Do you do like you've got that one at the back there as a custom piece, but how what percentage of your work is actually custom? You know, special convention commissions compared to what you just do for yourself.
90% is custom work and commissions. We actually specifically took a year off this year to study so we could explore our own avenues a bit more,
Okay.
because your life gets so consumed with commission work and doing work for other people that you can almost like there's things you miss out on learning that are within your style that you like. So Zoe and I, just took a year to paint for ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
So this is Chris Tiger Harris here says, right, anyone can save your images on their PC or phone and claim it's theirs. That's the danger of it. Definitely the danger of it. And yeah, I think
and they do.
Right. And I think that's what I find like for people who actually work in the anime style, like the manga style, because that's a very and also animation style, right? Like cartoon style, because it's so stylized work, especially because it's not photoreal, it's not particular, it doesn't have the brush strokes as such as you would have as a traditional artist. Like you can say, this is how the lines went with my work. Because it's the digital format of that, I think it makes anybody can claim it. And I think
they can, and it comes down to you as an artist to decide: am I going to chase this person or am I going to leave it? Some artists will chase that person, some will leave it. The nice way to go about it, when I do have an issue and it's happened, is I send them a simple message and go, hey, this is actually my image. What is it doing on your website, please? And well, they usually take it down pretty quick, in my experience.
Yeah, you just post it anyway, in my opinion, because anyone can download an image and anyone can take a photo of your artwork if it's on a wall. There's no point chasing down every single person. If you catch them, you catch them. If you don't, you don't.
Well, there's the other side of that, and I don't mean to disrespect any artists that are really like active in trademarking and copywriting their work, because we do as well. But how far does it go? What am I going to do? Stop people taking photos at events? Because they've now got the high resolution images. Well, their cameras are better than mine. If I ask them, they send me the photo, which is lovely. So I think there's a certain amount of humanity that has to come into this as well. But I really can't think of any way, unfortunately, to stop people from stealing images or art. Just take progress photos as you go. And then if it does end up going anywhere, you can at least show progress photos. But other than that, I'm no help. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the reality is everything gets stolen.
Oh,
well, I mean, I had a logo stolen from us, which was this. All right, so this double F, the double F. So that was stolen around about 2006 or 2006, 2007, And I spent months coming up with that logo while I was learning how to be a business, do a small business course. I just sat there coming up with this artwork, and during the course, and just I've got I've got a pad which has got all the all the little things I changed and why I changed that and what it was supposed to be like, and we got. I remember because I put up a clothing line with it on it, and it was called Forgiven Clothing, and I went away to film school and sold what we had of the manufactured clothing, t-shirts, hats, and everything. And I came back to Auckland, and because I'd been down South Island, and I came back to Auckland, and someone who had been on the TV show said, "Hey, did you take part in the TV show as well?" I said, "What do you mean?" That. I go, "No, this is my hat. That's my logo." Right? This is the label that's on my clothing. And he goes, "No." I was like, "What?" So I looked into the IP laws in New Zealand, and I rang up the lawyer and it said, "Well, you need 10K."
Yeah.
If you're
so what is it, trademark it? Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come with 10K to go to court with it. And I was like, "Dude, I've just started doing civil work. I've just come out of school, do my bachelor's course, and I got So I just thought, you know what? I've got all this years of stuff. I've got a cap in the cupboard. I have a hoodie in the hanging there, and it's got my logo with a label, and printed everything. When I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to put up my superhero with the logo on it. We got plans for all this, and when they come, I say, well, let's see who created first and how did it come to be, and and at the end of the day, I've got nothing to prove.
Does count.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's like if they end up taking something and claiming it's theirs, it's their place to prove it that they came up with it originally. And the fact is, they have more money involved in their product than I have in mine.
Yeah.
And I think,
and that's right. If not trademark, you can argue prior use, but it becomes a whole thing. We recently discovered there's another place up here using our acronym that we came up with, and it's like, but do we bother? We looked at them. They're actually another community place, and they're doing really great in the community in Northland, and the first part of our name starts with Northland. So the fact that someone else is going to come up with our acronym is quite high. Is it worth your time chasing them down the street?
Or sometimes we're just inspired by the same things and massive coincidences happen.
That's it. Yeah. So wait for Setting Sun Comics.
there is the other side of where people want to take shortcuts rather than spend the time building something. I think a lot of times with comics is like that. Like you just take an idea and you go, "Oh, it's my idea. It's not down." And I usually when I'm talking to friends who come to me about ideas, I go, "Don't tell me your idea. Trademark it. Put it down. Don't even tell me what the story is about. I don't want to know what your character does." Because somewhere along the line, I might come up with a similar character, and you will come back to me and tell me it's, remember that time I told you that idea, about this? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I've got a friend who I'll say something to, and he'll give me this. He'll say, "Nah, thank you, but no, I'm not going to take any of that, because when I create, it's got to be 100% mine. Otherwise, someone will always say, I had a foot in that. I had a hand in creation on that," and then they might come back and go, "I want a piece of it now. That now it's great, or now it's done well," and but they don't. A lot of people, the shortcut and is an easier path for them to take, because they don't want to do the hard work, and they don't see the work it takes to build something. And I think
I think that's it. It takes years and decades to build something large enough. And it's, we're still small in regards to business, but I suppose I look at the avatars or the acronyms that are taken or whatever, or anyone that might be trying to take shortcuts. And if you know business well, they're not going to last long riding off shortcuts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, people figure it out.
you're better off
Yeah.
like focusing on your work and just keep moving forwards because, well, I suppose it's not right, but gosh, I mean, I remember when I started face painting, we were all like, "Do you want to be Spider-Man?"
Yeah.
and we're totally stealing that design. We know
Yeah.
it. What am I going to do? Do you want to be Spider Person with red?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I mean, you can't stop a kid from not having Spider-Man, right? Like, I mean, that's one thing that, like, I really think when you get to a stage when you're trying to protect something that's so in the mainstream, right? Like, I
Yeah.
can just hold up a DVD, right? That's so everywhere. It's a global thing. You can't not
Batman's
tell
the other one.
kids, you know, or Batman, right? You can't tell kids not to, you know, have that on themselves, especially when their
You're
parents
not
have bought freaking toys, right, for them.
Yeah, it's interesting too because face painters sometimes use stencils as well,
Yeah,
and the stencil mask that they buy will be like Bat Boy or Web Blaster Man.
yeah,
Just try and avoid that copyright. It's quite hilarious, but fair enough,
yeah,
I suppose.
yeah. I mean, like, it's when you sell like multi-billion dollars worth of product, and to get people to buy more of that product, and then you want to go and say to a child, you can't have that on your gravestone. It seems a bit insidious and
Oh,
evil, you know.
yeah, that
And I'm
was a
talking
really
about
sad
Disney with
story.
with a little boy with his Spider-Man fan, died young. I think he died of cancer or leukemia, and they couldn't let the parents give him a Spider-Man gravestone, and they had to get taken away. It's like you kind of think like, how many more $1 billion do you need, you know,
Yeah,
to not let a kid who's passed on actually have a
that's so
marker,
sad.
you know,
Yeah,
and I think, like, I mean, I could never imagine that, like, someone taking in Cure Girl and saying, "Oh, I love this character so much. My daughter or my son, enjoyed it so much. We want to put that out there." I'm like, do you
yeah.
need to ask me? It's like it's such like that's the greatest homage in the world you can have for something, And the fact is that, it's like it's something you've imagined, right? You came up with in your head, and you got out there to a place where someone would care so much about that character, they'd want
Yeah.
that on there. And I think that disconnect. I think that comes part of this is like the whole mass manufacturing of stuff, where it goes beyond just being something enjoyable to just being a dollar sign. It
Yeah,
just
and
becomes a
the mega corporations, I understand and respect they are protecting what they spent years building and their
yeah,
intellectual property. But then again, the fan art and things like that has a certain amount of humanity to it.
right.
So, it's kind of like, I don't know, do you trade your humanity for money?
You gotta pick and
Mm,
choose what you fight over, really. I had a
Yeah.
similar
yeah,
situation where the lady who bought my demon painting, she's going to get it tattooed, she said.
Yeah.
And I'm
right.
totally cool with that. I don't mind if the tattooist uses that in their portfolio or as they're tattooing, because to me,
Mm,
that's a huge honor. And they're still
yeah,
having to recreate that image and use their own art skills to create that image on
right.
skin, which is something I couldn't do anyway. So I'm completely
Mm,
fine with that. So these mega corporations are just
Yeah. And Zoe
completely
brought up a
crazy.
really good point because she's sort of like my apprentice and still learning as she goes. And when the lady
yeah.
wanted her artwork tattooed after buying the original, Zoe was like, "Mum, do I charge her again for the use of the image on a tattoo? Is that still my
Mm,
image?
yeah,
Or does the tattooist get to use it again? What is this really opening up
yeah,
here? Does that photo go on their website and their tattooist get the credit for Zoe's design?"
Yeah, I told her
right.
it's one time use,
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
think that's
but
Good.
they
I think
can
that's
use it as
Yeah, I think that's something that I was thinking about that as well. So like with the tattoos especially. So there was a big huge issue with oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. Is a WWE superstar, like wrestling superstar. Gosh, I can't remember his name. But he's called the Snake or something. Like not the Jake's the Snake or something like that, but like a newer guy, but he's like does the cobra thing. But he had all these tattoos. The lady who had done these tattoos, so they made sleeves. WWE had done sleeves to sell, right? As like that you could buy as clothing, like the sock sleeves, whatever. And she basically said that they couldn't do that because it was her artwork on his body that she'd come up with. And so they had, for ages, they had to cover it on toys, they had to cover it on the games and stuff until they worked out something. But it's like a lot of work now that is done like traditionally, like you could get like you could basically get a Joker tattoo now, right? So do you get someone to actually do an original Joker art and then go, now you can do that? Because now you're paying the artist, or you're just going to take it off already somebody else's work, because that way at least somebody gets paid who comes up with the artwork. Or do you pay the original artist for it?
Yeah, or do you pay Universal Studios plus the tattooist plus whoever else? And a lot of the time too, because we design tattoos, people will say to us, "Oh, can you design my tattoo?" And then they take it to the tattooist. The tattooist is always going to change and balance that to fit your body and their style because it's their work. They're probably better off just going to the tattooist in the first place. Yeah. But they say, no, exactly like that. And the thing is not everything fits the same way, or the tattooist might not be willing to put their name to that design. There's all sorts that can happen. It's Apparently I have the Led Zeppelin angel on my back, and I didn't know for about 6 years until someone pointed it out for me. Because to me it was just an angel I found in a book, an androgynous one with like cloth around his waist, and couldn't figure out why people were going, Led Zeppelin. So that must have been ripped from somewhere as well. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think there's the thing with art, isn't it? Like, it's so much of it out there as well. And I think sometimes coming up with original work is always going to be the human thing, isn't it? Like, only humans will come up with something original. And I think that's something that we, as, God's creatures, whatever, can come up because we think we communicate with each other. We're able to see things in a different way. And individually, we can see things individually, and we can see the same thing, yet produce it in a different way, and be witness to the same plant or the flower, yet we'll draw it differently. Yet if you do that to AI, it'll be the same thing. If you do that to the computer, it'll be exactly the same thing, produced exactly the same way, just with a slight different touch to it. But unlike us, we'll do 10 different versions of it. Until we get the one that we are happy with. And I think that's where education comes in, as like with art teachers, right? Where you guys can sit down with a student who's got a particular art style, and yet they're able to keep working at it and change and change and change until you get the final version and go, this is what I'm happy with, and this is what I will work with now. I think that's a great thing about actually going to schools like yourselves, like taking courses where you have someone not trying to put out cookie cutter artists, right? But actually putting out creatives. And I think that's a great thing about places like yourselves that actually do creative as the main thing, rather than like A, B, C, D, because I know we don't, artists do not work A, B, C, D, like when I'm writing a story, I'm writing like X, and then I'll come back to B, and then I'll float around to, Z, and maybe I'll, and the same thing, you don't start, you don't start where you finish up. And I think I think, you guys know more about that than I do. Do you want to talk about that aspect of it? The actual process of, working with kids at different levels of art, and also working within what their style is compared to what you guys are, as teachers have already, have your own style as.
Yeah, so in my teaching, or what was it, a certificate through the Open Polytech that I did, it was all about, first of all, identifying different types of learners. There's 5 different types of learners, or so we think. And if you can kind of fit people into one of those learning brackets, it can aid you and assist you in being able to teach that person. Now, the typical school system, like back in certainly the 1990s when I was there, really only accounted for some of the students. All of your
Sorry, guys. Looks like we had a drop.
Hello?
Apologies. Yep.
Looks like he might have disconnected. It's just us.
No, you're good. You're good. It's just like
Okay.
I just wanted to I put this up and it just sort of disconnected you. So remember how I was telling you about the tattoos? So it's Randy Orton. So
Right.
he got sued or something because of his tattoos in WWE video game, and she got mad. So the artist.
That's who it was. Yes, that's right. Oh man. Oh, so long story short, first we assess what type of learner the person is through trying different delivery techniques. If we can refine what type of learner that child is, then we can use techniques that are more suited to them. But we never go, this is what you're going to paint, this is your pass mark. They tell us what they like, and we give them options of what they can do. And then based on the options of what they can do, they can choose the path for their own art, because we're never going to go, that's not how a leaf is painted. We're going to go, look, if you want to do it with pencils or your thumbs or that KFC teaspoon, if that works for you and that's your style, then great. So we're just there to offer the tools and bail them out of things in their style if it goes a bit pear-shaped.
Yeah, we offer what we know, and then we let them develop on their own skills and interests and ideas.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Gosh, that's interesting about the tattoos being pulled up on them, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for the video.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for that. I really appreciate that. I mean, like, so it's, I mean, like, there's so much.
Oh, that's Chris. Hi, Chris. Sorry, I just realized who he was.
Okay, cool. All right. So, what age groups do you guys have come to the school?
Do you want to start with your age group?
So I teach 9 to 13-year-olds.
Right.
Which are very beginner artists, and I try and teach them what I learnt and what I wish I knew growing up and drawing the kind of stuff they drew. Because I remember when I was younger starting digital art and anime and cartoon and all this stuff that they're interested in, there was nearly nothing. And it was quite difficult because there was a really limited number of sources of information. So now I offer what I know, and I encourage them to also look online and other places, because there's a huge amount of information that they could learn from there that will better their art. And it's up to them to decide what to listen to and what they like and what they don't like. And that's how it develops.
And try other art classes. Yeah. That's a huge thing. Like, quite often people are like, oh, we're sorry we're leaving you. It's like, go and experience the world, they'll come back.
Collect as much knowledge as you can.
That's it. That's exactly it. So she does 9 to 13.
Yeah.
And then there's a gap where we both do, which is about 13 to 20. And those are mostly the respite and teenage students struggling with mental health or the special needs. And then I teach the adults. So from, again, probably that kind of 13, 14 gap. Through to my oldest student is in her 80s, I think. Yeah. Possibly. Most of mine are older than me. It's quite cool. Yeah.
It shows
So
that people, there is. I think when you get to older age, you got more time, but you also are more willing to learn as well. Because I think when you're younger, you kind of like think, I know it all. I know. I did that when I was younger,
yeah.
and sometimes I still think that I know it all. But I think I'm more teachable now than I used to be. And I think the older you get, the more you
Yeah,
realize that you don't know it all.
the older people are seizing opportunities. They've lived
Yeah.
their lives mostly, maybe, and they're looking back and going, "Gosh, I wish I could have." And the answer is, "Well, why don't you?"
Yeah.
It's so we get quite a few that come in just because it's something they always looked at doing, and you don't often come across airbrush lessons, especially. So when they pop up, I mean, when opportunity knocks, if you can, take it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to talk about as we finish off here, or that you want to promote?
No, just
I
how
know you
excited
guys
I
are going
am
to be.
to.
I know you guys are coming to. I know Julia, you're coming to the Kerikeri Plunge Convention, and we're going to have selling art and stuff there. And I encourage
And I do
everybody else
some
who's
face painting.
yeah. I
Painting
encourage
is
everybody who's. I encourage
and
everybody who's in the far north and Northland to actually check out the Facebook page Plunge Convention, and look at what we got coming up in Carrigo, 16th of September, and have a look at, if you want a stall there to sell your artwork, just like Julia, and get out there, inspire other people. Now, I'm going to let you say your piece, Julia. And
oh, thanks. I was just saying how excited I am to being there and for being there because our last one we did was really cool. I love doing the airbrush tattoos and all that sort of stuff. Zoe and I'm briefly going to selfishly plug ourselves for a second. We
all right, I'll
have
put you one sec.
yeah. Did you change the
There you go.
settings? Hello, it's Julia and Zoe here from Northland Arts Centre Charitable Trust. We're actually holding 2 exhibitions this month. One is a walk-in viewing exhibition at Highlight, and that starts on Friday the 18th of when is it? August, Friday the 18th of August.
Yeah.
That is the hydroponics shop. They've asked us to hang a few pieces, and that is a pre-exhibition for one on Saturday, the 1st of September, which is Zoe's and my graduation party. We're graduating level 6 in arts and creativity. And it's going to be a pretty neat event. So we'll send an invite out through Aru, and we'd love to see some of you guys there. It's going to be 116.
Excellent. It's a good venue.
It's yes. I'm glad we fell on that in the end. Light drinks and light snacks provided.
All right. Zoe, did you want to say anything else?
Hello.
Currently. Hello, I'm Zoe. Feel free to check me out at Zeke Rose Arts NZ on Facebook. I'm currently starting up my own the brand, and I'm currently doing pinups, and I'm going to be releasing prints and products at some point.
Custom pinups. So if you want to be painted as a pinup, that's your lady.
And I do traditional and digital.
Awesome. Might have to hit you up for a cover sometime. So thank you, guys. Make sure to check it out. Northland Arts Centre. Is it still called Northland Arts Centre?
Yeah, still Northland Arts Centre. Yep. They can message us or my personal page, Julia Tapp. I don't mind. And
awesome.
It's going to be good. And we'll have a go as well at your and Critter Girl as well, I think. Let's do our own fan art. Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, more fan art, the better. I think it's just, it's just
maybe we can do a body paint at your event of Critter Girl. Find me a model.
We'll see. I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to put their hand up to try it out. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time out here on a Sunday. Wherever you guys all are, I just thank you for joining us. Thank you, Chris, for providing information. I really enjoyed that. Getting Randy Auden there, and actually, talking about art as well and the digital thing. I know sometimes, like, you might think that we're all fearful of AI, but there is a reason why we are, and then also a reason why we're not. because sometimes it can be a helping hand to well, as artists and creatives, but you know, you got to bring a balance to this, and wherever you fall on the, you know, on the subject, it's your choice to fall on that subject and own it. You know, don't try to fight with people who don't agree with it, and don't fight against people who do agree with it. Just do your thing, and you know, at the end of the day, don't steal art. You know, that's all that every artist wants is don't steal our art. You know, don't steal our things that we've spent so much time creating. And because people have spent decades honing their skills, right? Everybody has spent decades honing their skill. Me as a writer, I've spent about probably 5 years honing my skill as a writer, you know, and spent time and money doing that. And, you know, you guys both have just gone to school to learn to be better teachers and, you know, run what you're doing better and provide a better opportunities for people in the community of all ages. And it's just so cool. We didn't talk a lot about the respite and what that is, but thank you. And I'm sure you guys can find out more by actually getting contact with Julia, like she said, on Facebook. And if you missed out at the start of this interview or anything like that, or this discussion, check it out. It's on PlungeCast on YouTube, one word, PlungeCast. Check out all the other interviews we've done. We just love. I just personally love promoting other people. It's just and just talking with people and artists, because I get to learn stuff. I get to learn about them, and I get to promote them, because it's just growing the community, growing people doing great work in the community. And like I said, we got what we did got started with Plunge right at the opening of Northern Artist Center with Julia. And, you know, if we didn't have that beautiful event happen, we might not have met Hinu, who was the general manager at the time of Creative Northern. Which brought me and her together, we would not be where we are right now. Sure, we could have been somewhere else, but
amazing.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, we've had so much help along the way. So that's why I want to keep helping other people get ahead as well. Because we're not an island. You know, as people, we're humans, we're sociable creatures, and wherever you are, grow your community, share your love for art, and, you know, be well, be safe. We'll catch you next time. Like I said, check out Julia Tapp's on Facebook and Tapp, and we'll see you next broadcast. I think next week we've got a horror comic writer from the UK, Lucifer Storm. He's got a few comics out there, and I'm just excited to have him join us next week. I think it might be early, around about 10 o'clock. But thank you so much, guys. See you next time. Ka kite anō.
Ka kite.